Welcome to an online presentation on social anxiety. I am Tyler Brown, a psychology intern at WSU Counseling and Testing Center. We'll be providing useful information today on how to deal with social anxiety and what therapy for social anxiety usually looks like. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, social anxiety is an intense anxiety or fear of being judged, negatively evaluated, or rejected in a social or performance situation. People with social anxiety disorder may worry about acting or appearing visibly anxious, or being viewed as stupid, awkward, or boring. Many people with social anxiety disorder also experience strong physical symptoms, such as rapid heart rate, nausea and sweating, and may experience full-blown panic attacks when confronting a feared situation. If you experience social anxiety, you are not alone. Social anxiety is estimated to affect 15 million American adults as the second most diagnosed anxiety disorder, only behind specific phobia. Despite these numbers, fewer than 5% of people with social anxiety seek treatment within the year of onset, and about 33% will experience symptoms on average of 10 years before seeking treatment. This is unfortunate, but it makes sense. If someone fears social situations, the process of making an appointment and seeing a therapist can feel like an insurmountable task. By its very nature, social anxiety makes it difficult to seek treatment or help. The purpose of this PowerPoint is to provide some basic education on social anxiety and provide a brief window into therapy and how it can help. Therapy for social anxiety usually involves discussion about social anxiety itself and why it happens. From there, a client will learn coping strategies that can help manage anxiety in stressful social situations. Finally, therapy involves working toward meeting goals by exposing oneself to stressful situations while armed with new strategies for coping. The following slides will include brief examples of things that you might learn. First, it's important to understand that anxiety is a normal feeling that we all experience at some point or another. Anxiety represents a defense mechanism that our body triggers to keep us safe. It is normal function doing its job. Problems typically emerge when we misrepresent these signals to mean that real danger is present when in fact none is there. In other words, we allow ourselves to buy into our anxiety and take that signal at face value. When we buy into our anxiety, we accept our thoughts about the situation as an absolute truth. We begin to avoid social situations, and we are forced into social situations. We try to escape them as quickly as possible. This only reinforces our thoughts and fears about social situations. Social anxiety can occur when we focus our attention on our internal monologues and anxiety cues. We often live in these worlds that we create in ourselves. Often, when we view the world around us, it is not as scary as what we've made it out to be in our minds. This is where the concept of mindfulness is helpful. Mindfulness is a skill that's about living in the present moment and awakening to your current experience without judging it, rather than dwelling on the past or anticipating the future. Get out of your head and experience the world around you. Now I want you to try something for me. This is an activity that we call 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. First, look around the room. I want you to name 5 things you can see. Now touch 4 things in your environment. How do they feel? How are they different? Now focus on 3 things you can hear. Now 2 things you can smell. This one might be hard since our sense of smell adapts quickly, but try your best. Perhaps smell your clothes or your hair or something on your person. Now, finally, say one positive thing about yourself. This is what we call a grounding exercise. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 uses your senses to bring your awareness into the present moment. You may have noticed that as you did this activity, it was a little bit more difficult for you to focus on your thoughts. You were able to bring your presence into this moment. As I mentioned earlier, our thoughts are really important in terms of how we interpret the world around us. Many schools of thought and therapy focus on our thinking and our relationships with our thoughts. For example, you might learn to appreciate that your thoughts are just thoughts and not truths. In other words, don't turn your thoughts into monsters under your bed. When you're having these thoughts, preface every thought with, "I am having the thought that." This will help reinforce that idea that you're just having thoughts, not necessarily truths. Another strategy is to thank your thoughts. Remember that anxiety is a normal reaction, and your anxious thoughts are a process in that. You would not be anxious if you didn't care about your body's automatic systems that are trying to keep you safe. Thank your thought for this while remembering that the thought is not necessarily true. Think of it this way. Has every piece of advice you've ever gotten from friends and family been helpful or turned out to be true? Probably not. But those people are usually just trying their best to help. Your mind is no different. It's just trying to help you out, but that doesn't necessarily make it true. A final strategy that you might learn would be a technique called Name Your Mind. Bear with me, this is going to sound strange and perhaps even goofy. That's the whole point. Name the part of your brain that generates automatic thoughts. Seriously. Name it Jeff, Dave, Doug, Karen, Shannon, Elmo, Big Bird, you name it. Doesn't matter. What matters is remembering that your thoughts aren't monsters hiding under your bed. We're all-powerful beings capable of seeing the future and everything as truth. But we often give our thoughts that power. Naming your mind reminds you that it's not these things, that our thoughts are every bit as human as ourselves and anyone else in our lives. I know. Relaxing when you're anxious seems like an impossible task, but it's something that can be accomplished with practice. The important thing to remember is we are not trying to get rid of anxiety. That's an impossible task, especially in a situation that is supposed to promote anxiety, such as social situations. But just because we're trying to accept our anxiety does not mean that we can't turn the dial down a little bit. A couple of strategies that I won't be going over today that we often teach are deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation. Techniques like these that you learn in therapy are aimed at reducing that anxiety response that you get in anxiety-provoking situations. Perhaps one of the best treatments for social anxiety is the thing that's the hardest to do. Exposure simply means facing your fears. Now don't panic. No one's going to ask you to do the thing that you fear the most. Instead, exposure is often about taking baby steps and learning that the things that we're afraid of the most are often not as scary as our minds make them out to be. Consider the following examples that are common social situations that give people anxiety. Eating lunch maybe in the RSC around noon, going to a party with a friend, speaking in front of a class, ordering food at a restaurant, attending a campus event without a friend, and going to a party without a friend. Maybe some of these things are situations you fear. However, I'm sure that some of these situations are scarier than others. That's why we generally create a hierarchy and do these things from least anxiety-provoking to most. Let's rearrange them and see an example of what we can come up with. Different people might rank things on this list differently, which is why we rank them in the first place. The idea behind exposure is to start small and work our way up toward more feared social situations. So this might be an example of what one person's fear hierarchy looks like. Ordering food at a restaurant might be very low on that list, while going to a party without a friend might be the one thing that they think that they can never do. The therapist would work with this person to expose them to these situations at a pace that's comfortable with the client. It's important to know, however, that a therapist will never force a client to move on until the client is ready to do so. Social anxiety can be a scary and debilitating condition that robs people of valued opportunities in their lives. Think about what you might have missed out on because of social anxiety. However, social anxiety is not something you have to live with the rest of your life. There are empirically supported treatments, like the ones we briefly went over today, that can help you overcome your social anxiety and live the life you want to live without your anxiety being a stranglehold. I know that some of these treatments can seem frightening or tough, but you don't have to do the journey alone. If you or someone you know suffers from social anxiety, I encourage you to share this video and consider making an appointment with the Counseling and Testing Center to discuss and practice some of these treatment options. The Counseling and Testing Center is open Monday, Thursday, and Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Tuesday and Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. while school's in session. And our summer hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We charge a small fee per session and do not bill insurance. We understand that these issues are difficult, and we are devoted to helping our students overcome their fear and anxiety. If you would like to make an appointment, please call us at 316-978-3440 or drop by our office at Grace Wilkie Hall, room 320. The Counseling and Testing Center posts videos and share links to relaxation and meditation techniques for anxiety management on multiple media platforms. Feel free to follow us at WSU Counseling and Testing Center on Facebook and Instagram, Wichita State University Counseling and Testing Center on YouTube, or follow us on Twitter at CTC Shockers. You can also find these links on our webpage at wichita.edu/counselingtesting.